It started like any ordinary day in the world of love and hip-hop, bright, casual, seemingly harmless, but within hours, chaos erupted in a way no one could have predicted. Tamar Braxton was scrolling through her phone, laughing softly at messages that seemed trivial at first, unaware of the storm that was about to descend. Across the room, Mendeecees was present, lingering with the casual air, not realizing how quickly a single glance could ignite a fire. Tamar's phone sat on the table, screen glowing faintly, and for a moment, it seemed innocent, just a device holding ordinary conversations. But when Mendeecees' eyes flicked toward it, he noticed something, a thumbnail attached to a video file labeled with Yandy's name. The air shifted immediately, as if the room itself sensed the tension ready to erupt. In that moment, all the subtle cues that had been ignored, the small jokes, the fleeting smiles, the casual gestures became charged with potential betrayal. Tamar, oblivious, continued scrolling, unaware of how quickly the ordinary could turn catastrophic. Mendeecees' face froze, disbelief and anger battling for dominance across his features. He picked up the phone, hesitated, fingers trembling slightly, and the room held its breath along with him. In an instant, the casual afternoon transformed into a stage for a drama that seemed ripped straight from a reality TV plotline. Questions that had lingered in whispers suddenly demanded answers. Why did Tamar have the video? What did it show? How was Yandy involved? Fans online would later speculate endlessly, but in that room, there was no audience, just raw emotion, confusion, and the first sparks of a confrontation that would escalate rapidly. Every second felt elongated, every gesture weighted, and the world that Tamar thought she understood seemed to tilt dangerously. The ordinary had vanished. The day that began with lighthearted scrolling had now turned into the starting point of a scandal that would shatter trust, ignite social media, and leave Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy entangled in a drama far bigger than any of them could have imagined. And as the tension tightened, it was clear nothing would ever be the same again. The casual laughter and light chatter that filled the room just moments ago began to fade, replaced by a heavy, unspoken tension that seemed to thicken with every passing second. Mendeecees' gaze remained fixed on Tamar's phone, his brow furrowed, jaw tightening as he struggled to comprehend what he thought he saw. Tamar, sensing a shift but unaware of the magnitude, glanced up, noticing a subtle change in his expression. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, her voice cautious, almost afraid to break the sudden silence. Mendeecees didn't answer right away. Instead, he let a tense pause stretch long enough to create unease. Every movement felt loaded, every breath heavy, as though the air itself was holding its breath. Tamar's heart skipped a beat as she realized something had shifted, though she didn't yet understand the cause. The previously harmless space now felt like a battlefield, where one misstep could ignite an emotional explosion. Her fingers hovered over the edge of the phone, a nervous reflex, while Mendeecees slowly picked it up, his hand firm yet hesitant, the weight of what he might discover pressing down on him. The faint hum of background noise, messages pinging, chairs shifting. Distant voices faded into insignificance compared to the charged silence between them. Thoughts raced in both their minds. For Mendeecees, suspicion and betrayal collided with the fear of being deceived. For Tamar, confusion and worry mingled with the instinct to defend herself. The tension was no longer subtle. It had become a force unto itself, swirling around them, making the room feel smaller, heavier, suffocating. Every glance, every twitch, every faint smile carried meaning, magnified by the weight of unspoken questions. Tamar's attempts at casual conversation were met with brief, clipped responses, each one fueling the uncertainty. As seconds stretched into what felt like hours, the audience could almost feel the electricity in the room, the undeniable, inevitable sense that something monumental was about to erupt, and that neither Tamar nor Mendeecees would be able to avoid the consequences of this small, fateful moment. Mendeecees finally broke the silence, his voice low at first, trembling with a mix of disbelief and rising fury. "Why do you have this?" he demanded, the words cutting through the room like a blade. Tamar froze, her fingers hovering nervously over the edge of the table. Eyes wide as panic and confusion flooded her face. The question wasn't just about a video. It carried the weight of suspicion, betrayal, and a trust that now felt fragile, threatened, and nearly shattered. Tamar opened her mouth to respond, trying to explain, but Mendeecees couldn't. Each word sharp and relentless, echoing off the walls. "Where did you get this from? Did you even think about what this means?" The room felt smaller, charged with tension so thick it seemed to vibrate around them. Tamar's heart raced, voice shaking as she insisted, "It's not what it looks like. I didn't even watch it, I swear someone sent it to me by mistake." But Mendeecees wasn't listening. His eyes burned with a combination of hurt and fury, scanning the room as though every object could betray another hidden secret. Every second stretched painfully, amplifying the emotional stakes, until the argument spiraled beyond explanation. Tamar's hands trembled as she reached for the phone, desperate to stop him from reacting impulsively, while Mendeecees paced back and forth, jaw tight, voice rising. The clash wasn't just verbal, it was electric, a storm of raw emotion that neither could contain. Observers would later describe the moment as surreal, a mixture of disbelief and chaos. As if watching trust itself shatter in real time, friends and crew members attempted to intervene, but their voices were drowned out by the force of anger and the whirlwind of accusations flying between them. Every glance, every motion became symbolic of deeper wounds, and the intensity of the confrontation made it impossible for either Tamar or Mendeecees to retreat without feeling exposed. The explosive question had ignited more than just curiosity, it had opened a floodgate of emotions, suspicion, and tension that would only grow, setting the stage for the irreparable fallout that was about to sweep through their world. The argument escalated quickly, the room vibrating with the intensity of raw emotion. Tamar's voice rose, trembling yet defiant, as she insisted, "It's not what you think. I didn't even watch the video." Her words, though urgent, collided with Mendeecees' mounting rage, each rebuttal slicing through the fragile space between them. His expression was a storm of anger, betrayal, and disbelief all raging simultaneously, twisting his features until he looked almost unrecognizable. He pointed at the phone, voice sharp, trembling with emotion, demanding answers Tamar didn't yet have. "You think I'm stupid? Why would you even have this saved?" The room seemed to shrink around them, the walls echoing their shouts. The air thick with tension so heavy it felt suffocating. Tamar's attempts to grab the phone to explain were met with resistance, Mendeecees holding it firmly as if it were the very symbol of trust violated. Friends nearby tried to step in, voices soft and pleading, but their presence only heightened the chaos. Their attempts drowned out by the torrent of emotions. Every gesture, every glance carried immense weight, and the smallest movements became explosive. Tamar's eyes filled with frustration and fear. Her voice cracked under the pressure, every word a desperate plea for understanding. Meanwhile, Mendeecees paced, jaw clenched, muttering under his breath, each step heavy with the invisible weight of betrayal. The tension reached a peak when, in a moment of uncontainable fury, he slammed the phone onto the counter. The crack of shattered glass rang like thunder. A physical punctuation marked the emotional devastation unfolding. Tamar froze, hands trembling, staring at the fragments of her once trusted device. Her sense of control shattered alongside it. Silence fell for an instant, charged and electric, as both processed the irreversible damage. The confrontation wasn't merely about a phone. It was about trust, boundaries, and the painful realization that one impulsive act could unravel everything. As Tamar's shaky breaths filled the room, the storm of anger and confusion didn't dissipate, it only hinted at the chaos yet to come. A ripple effect that would soon pull Yandy and the wider circle into the heart of this explosive drama. The sound of glass breaking echoed like a gunshot, reverberating through the room and marking a turning point that could never be undone. Tamar's eyes widened, shock and disbelief mixing with a creeping sense of helplessness as she stared at the shattered pieces of her phone scattered across the counter. Mendeecees stood over it, chest heaving, face flushed with a mixture of anger, hurt, and betrayal. Every fragment of the broken device seemed to carry the weight of trust that had been destroyed in an instant. Tamar reached out, trembling, her voice barely above a whisper, "You didn't have to do that." But her words fell into the thick, electric silence. Mendeecees' jaw tightened. He didn't respond immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the remnants of the phone, the unspoken truth simmering between them like molten lava. The atmosphere was charged, heavy, almost suffocating, as the gravity of the moment settled in. Friends and crew who had gathered tried to intervene, but their voices sounded distant, powerless against the storm of emotion dominating the room. Tamar's hands shook, and her mind raced, trying to piece together how a casual afternoon had spiraled into this catastrophic eruption. The incident wasn't merely about a video or a phone, it was about trust, betrayal, and the fragile nature of relationships under pressure. Every thought, every emotion felt magnified, as if the room itself had become a magnifying glass for pain and frustration. Meanwhile, Mendeecees muttered under his breath, "This is betrayal," his words heavy, filled with the raw sting of perceived deception. Tamar's mind struggled to reconcile intent with consequence. She hadn't watched the clip. She hadn't meant any harm. Yet the destruction of her phone left her feeling exposed and powerless. The tension was electric, the emotional fallout undeniable. In that instant, a single impulsive act had ignited a cascade of fear, suspicion, and uncertainty that would soon engulf not only Tamar and Mendeecees, but also Yandy, dragging everyone into a whirlwind of gossip, speculation, and public scrutiny. The shattered phone was no longer just a device, it was a symbol, a catalyst, and a warning that the simplest actions could have devastating consequences when trust was fragile and emotions ran unchecked. While Tamar was still processing the chaos of her broken phone, the ripple effects had already reached Yandy, who was miles away, focused on her own projects and unaware of the storm about to engulf her. Calls and messages began pouring in, frantic and insistent, each one more alarming than the last, asking if she knew about a private clip tied to Tamar. Confusion quickly turned into a sharp, creeping panic as Yandy realized she was being pulled into something she had no part in creating. Without hesitation, she called Tamar directly, her voice tense and urgent, demanding explanations. "Tell me it's not true," Yandy pleaded, her disbelief palpable over the phone. Tamar, still shaken from the confrontation with Mendeecees, tried to calm her, insisting, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't even know the clip was on my phone," but Yandy's voice, filled with hurt and frustration, cut through the distance, trembling yet controlled. "How could you even have this?" she asked, the question heavy with implied betrayal. Tamar explained the circumstances. Someone had sent the clip to her weeks ago. She hadn't deleted it because she didn't realize the implications, but by then, the damage had already begun. Mendeecees had destroyed her phone, and the chaos was spilling into social media, gossip blogs, and mutual friends' conversations. The uncertainty of intent versus perception amplified the tension between all three, each struggling to navigate feelings of hurt, violation, and confusion. Tamar's attempts to clarify and defend herself were sincere, but Yandy's sense of personal boundaries had been breached, leaving her wary and distrustful. Meanwhile, the incident began spreading rapidly online. Fans, insiders, and gossip pages speculated wildly, each rumor adding fuel to the fire. Tamar's social media activity changed, posts were deleted. Subtle statements added, but the perception of guilt lingered. Yandy, though trying to remain composed, felt the weight of public scrutiny pressing down, forcing her to balance her own integrity with the unfolding drama. Across town, Mendeecees' anger and suspicion remained unresolved, feeding into the tension that now connected all three of them in an escalating triangle of emotion, misunderstanding, and media frenzy. The confrontation with the phone was no longer just an isolated incident. It had become a public spectacle, threatening to redefine relationships, reputations, and trust among Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy, leaving no one untouched. By the time Tamar and Yandy had spoken, the internet had already exploded with speculation, turning the private confrontation into a public spectacle. Fans and gossip pages dissected every detail, twisting fragments of truth into sensational headlines that spread like wildfire. Hashtags like #YanDickClip and #TAMARPhone leak began trending, fueling debates and accusations from every corner. Tamar deleted posts, shared subtle statements, and tried to maintain some control over her narrative. The perception of guilt persisted, magnified by the relentless scrolling eyes of social media users. Mendeecees' actions, meanwhile, were scrutinized and debated. Some applauded his protective instincts, while others condemned the destruction of someone else's property. The drama wasn't confined to online chatter. Mutual friends, acquaintances, and insiders all became part of the rumor mill, adding layers of interpretation, assumptions, and speculation. Yandy, caught in the middle, had to navigate not only her personal feelings, but also the waves of public judgment. She posted carefully measured statements, but the frenzy refused to subside, demanding explanations she wasn't prepared to give. Observers commented on the shifting dynamics between the three, noting the once friendly interactions between Tamar and Mendeecees, now replaced with tension and distrust. Every photo, comment, and cryptic social media post was analyzed, feeding the frenzy and keeping the drama alive. Even casual followers felt compelled to take sides, dividing into camps defending Tamar, Mendeecees, or Yandy, each perspective fueled by partial information and emotional investment. The cycle of posts, replies, and viral content created a pressure cooker environment, magnifying stress and forcing the trio into reactive positions. Tamar's and Yandy's efforts to clarify the situation privately were constantly undermined by the public's relentless curiosity and judgment. The situation reached a point where every action, no matter how measured, was scrutinized, misinterpreted, and amplified, leaving Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy trapped in a cycle of chaos they hadn't intended to create. The phone incident had escalated beyond a single private confrontation. It had become a social media storm, one that would continue to test trust, loyalty, and the delicate balance between personal life and public perception. And as the online frenzy grew, the pressure on all three only intensified, setting the stage for the next explosive interactions. Amid the chaos consuming social media, mutual friends and close associates attempted to intervene, striving to mediate between Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy. Calls and messages urged calm, offered explanations, and reminded them that not every assumption should dictate reactions. But their efforts often fell futile against the whirlwind of emotions and public scrutiny. Tamar, exhausted and emotionally drained, struggled to reconcile her innocence with the weight of widespread judgment. Each private conversation seemed inadequate compared to the roaring narrative unfolding online. Mendeecees, meanwhile, wrestled with his own conscience, caught between lingering anger and a creeping recognition that his impulsive actions might have caused more harm than clarity. In the quiet moments between confrontations and media frenzy, he reflected on his relationship with both Tamar and Yandy, replaying events in his mind and searching for answers to questions that felt impossible to resolve. Yandy, too, spent time in reflection, questioning trust, loyalty, and the boundaries of personal privacy. She recognized the fragility of relationships and how quickly misunderstandings could spiral into public scandal. Each of them wrestled with feelings of betrayal, guilt, and frustration, but also the realization that healing required more than just explanations. It required empathy, patience, and a willingness to see beyond immediate emotions. Despite the attempts to mediate, tension persisted, and each interaction seemed fraught with potential for further conflict. The trio's personal reflections highlighted the complexity of human emotions when combined with fame, social media scrutiny, and a miscommunication. Every message left unsent, every conversation avoided, and every public appearance became a calculated risk, with reputations and relationships hanging in the balance. The weight of expectation, both personal and societal, pushed each of them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and each other. It became clear that this incident was not just about a phone or a video. It was a test of resilience, understanding, and the capacity to navigate trust amidst chaos. And as they each processed their own emotions, the stage was set for a series of reconciliations and confrontations that would define the next chapter of their intertwined stories, with no guarantees that anything would return to how it once was. Fate, timing, or sheer coincidence brought Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy under the same roof at a high-profile charity event, and the tension was palpable from the moment they arrived. Although none of them had planned to interact, the mere presence of the others created an electric atmosphere that everyone in the room could feel. Tamar walked in first, attempting composure, but every step was shadowed by whispered speculation from onlookers who had been following the drama closely. Cameras flashed, capturing every subtle glance, every micro-expression, feeding the endless cycle of online analysis. Mendeecees, already at the event, stood near the back with a drink in hand, eyes scanning the room, his body tense, every muscle alert. Yandy, greeting guests near the stage, tried to maintain her calm exterior, though those paying attention could see the subtle signs of unease and frustration. When Tamar and Mendeecees finally locked eyes across the crowded room, the air seemed to compress, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. The energy shifted. The casual background chatter seemed to fade as an invisible spotlight highlighted their mutual tension. Mendeecees approached slowly, his face unreadable, while Tamar remained poised, balancing confidence with caution. Their brief conversation was charged yet controlled, each word weighed, each pause meaningful. "You really going to act like we can't talk?" Mendeecees asked quietly, the subtext of past grievances heavy in his tone. Tamar's response was measured, reminding him of the incident with the phone and subtly asserting her dignity. Without escalating further, Yandy, observing from a distance, felt the strain of proximity but refrained from intervening, aware that any action could be misinterpreted. The media captured the encounter, turning an already tense moment into viral fodder for social platforms. Speculation immediately reignited, with fans and gossip pages dissecting the exchange, questioning intentions, alliances, and unresolved emotions. The charity event, meant to celebrate and give back, instead became a theater for confrontation, a public reflection of private turmoil. It underscored how intertwined their personal relationships had become with public perception, and how the lingering shadow of the phone incident continued to dictate interactions. By the night's end, all three left the event carrying the weight of unresolved tension, aware that the drama was far from over, and that every future encounter could further test the fragile bonds between them. In the days following the charity event, Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy began taking deliberate steps to regain control of their personal narratives and find some semblance of closure. Tamar, determined to assert her side of the story, arranged an exclusive interview with a respected entertainment host, carefully explaining the sequence of events that had led to the phone incident. Calm yet firm, she clarified that there had never been anything between her and Mendeecees, and that the video in question was a misunderstanding she had not intended to possess. The interview aired, and while some critics remained skeptical, many fans praised her composure and grace under pressure, helping to shift public perception slightly in her favor. Mendeecees, reflecting on his impulsive reaction, realized that his anger and jealousy had exacerbated the situation and created further misunderstandings. He took steps to reach out privately, sending a text to Yandy to request a conversation, showing a willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and seek reconciliation. Yandy, cautious but open to dialogue, agreed to meet with Mendeecees in a neutral, quiet setting, where they confronted the unresolved emotions that had built up since the incident. Apologies were exchanged, frustrations acknowledged, and although trust could not be instantly rebuilt, there was a shared recognition of the need to move forward carefully. Meanwhile, Tamar continued to monitor the online narrative, posting measured statements that emphasized honesty, personal growth, and the importance of not letting assumptions dictate one's story. The leaked footage from the charity event eventually surfaced, revealing the interactions between Tamar and Mendeecees were far less heated than previously portrayed, prompting many to apologize for spreading false narratives and adding credibility to Tamar's version of events. Slowly, the public began to recognize the human side of all three individuals. Tamar, navigating an unintentional scandal, Mendeecees, grappling with emotion-driven mistakes, and Yandy, asserting her right to privacy while maintaining dignity. The lessons from the entire ordeal became evident. Emotions can spiral quickly. Assumptions can destroy trust, and communication is vital in resolving conflicts. Although full reconciliation was far from guaranteed, these steps toward honesty, reflection, and measured dialogue set the stage for healing, leaving all three with a deeper understanding of the fragility and resilience inherent in relationships, both public and private. As the dust from the scandal settled, Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy began navigating the aftermath with cautious optimism, each learning hard lessons about trust, perception, and personal boundaries. Tamar, having publicly clarified the misunderstanding, focused on reclaiming her peace, limiting unnecessary social media exposure, and surrounding herself with supportive friends and her management team. She understood that the narrative online was powerful, but personal integrity and consistency in her message were equally essential to regaining credibility. Mendeecees, introspective and remorseful, dedicated time to reflecting on his reactions, acknowledging that his emotional outburst had caused more harm than protection. Conversations with close friends and mentors helped him understand the importance of measured responses, patience, and trust when navigating conflicts involving sensitive material. Yandy, meanwhile, maintained her boundary of silence in public forums, emphasizing privacy and self-care, yet gradually rebuilt lines of communication with both Tamar, Mendeecees. Through private discussions, apologies, and acknowledgement of misunderstandings, the trio began rebuilding a foundation of cautious trust, aware that their relationships might never fully revert to what they had been before the phone incident. Fans and media, gradually recognizing the authenticity of Tamar's statements and the restraint shown by Yandy, began moderating their speculation, though public curiosity and gossip never entirely disappeared. Each step forward was deliberate. Tamar's interviews emphasized calm and clarity. Mendeecees' private messages expressed accountability, and Yandy's measured responses reinforced her independence and self-respect, while the shadow of past mistakes lingered. The trio's handling of the situation illustrated the potential for personal growth, resilience, and reconciliation even amid intense public scrutiny. The experience underscored the fragility of relationships when fame, jealousy, and misunderstandings collide, yet also highlighted the power of honesty, reflection, and intentional action in repairing emotional damage. As they moved forward, Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy demonstrated that even the most explosive conflicts could lead to lessons in humility, empathy, and in the careful navigation of trust. While the public would always have opinions and curiosity would persist, the three began regaining control of their lives, prioritizing peace, mutual respect, and measured interactions, proving that even after chaos, recovery and understanding were possible, and that growth often emerges from the stormiest experiences. In the weeks following the explosive events, Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy each carried the emotional weight of the scandal, reflecting deeply on the lessons learned and the enduring consequences of misunderstandings. Amplified by fame, Tamar, having weathered intense public scrutiny, focused on self-preservation and personal growth. Understanding that perception often outweighs truth in the court of public opinion, she reinforced boundaries with her inner circle, recognizing the importance of careful digital management and discretion in her relationships. Mendeecees, meanwhile, confronted the consequences of allowing anger and assumptions to dictate actions. The broken phone, once a symbol of betrayal, became a stark reminder of the power of restraint and the dangers of reacting impulsively. When emotions run high, he began prioritizing clear communication and trust in both personal and professional relationships, acknowledging that rash decisions can have ripple effects far beyond the immediate moment. Yandy, caught in the crossfire despite her minimal involvement, reflected on the value of patience, self-respect, and measured responses. Her approach demonstrated that staying calm and thoughtful, even amid chaos, can preserve dignity and reduce further conflict. Collectively, the trio's experience highlighted the complex interplay between friendship, trust, and public perception, particularly in environments where every action is scrutinized and amplified. Though their relationships have been tested severely, each emerged with a nuanced understanding of emotional intelligence, accountability, and the importance of empathy in maintaining connections. Social media commentary gradually stabilized, as fans and critics alike absorbed the full context revealed through interviews, leaked footage, and personal statements, and a tentative equilibrium returned to their public personas. Yet the incident left an indelible mark, serving as a cautionary tale about how easily misunderstandings can escalate when compounded by assumptions, jealousy, and viral speculation. As Tamar, Mendeecees, and Yandy moved forward, they did so with a heightened awareness of the delicate balance between private lives and public scrutiny. The experience reinforced that trust is fragile, forgiveness is deliberate, and clarity of communication is essential. Ultimately, The events surrounding the phone, the clip, and the resulting turmoil became more than scandal. They became a story of human error, reflection, and the gradual journey toward understanding, offering lessons that would resonate far beyond the immediate circle of those involved.